Last Pint Productions presents the New Way podcast. The New Way contains adult content, and new episodes are released most Wednesdays. So back off, man. We're professionals. Listener discretion is advised.
So you were in Vietnam, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah?
Were you in the shit?
Yeah, I was in shit.
Last night, Darth Vader came down from planet Vulcan and told me that if I didn't take Lorraine out, that he'd melt my brain.
Here's how you get him. He pulls a knife, you pull a gun. He sends one of yours to the hospital, you send one of his to the morgue.
We came, we saw, we kicked its ass.
Everybody wants to be naked and famous. Everybody wants to be just like me. I'm naked.
Will you help teach me about this? What is it? A new way?
Hello and welcome once again to the New Way podcast, where we break down pop culture so you don't have to. I am your host, Matt Shank. I am joined via Zoom by Mr. Benny Scott Wilson.
Oh, hi.
Oh, Ben was just busy texting on his phone, just not dialed in at all. It's fine.
Yeah. I'm not texting. I'm looking at something that's relevant to the podcast.
Oh my gosh. Well, that fancy you. And of course, coming in all the way from Los Angeles, Mr. Nicholas Santacroce.
Hello, I also did not prepare for the podcast. I will be Googling things throughout the podcast.
You know what? That's going to make three of us. I prepared in as such as I wrote a list of 40 people that qualify for the topic, and we'll get to that in a moment. But we are joined by two guest stars in the studio. I think this might be the first time we've had two guests in studio and our hosts outside the studio.
Party of five.
It is a party of... That's
Ooh, can I be Scott Wolf?
You don't want to be Matthew Fox, right? That could be dangerous. We have a longtime listener and a frequent contributor to the podcast, Mrs. J.B. Overwing.
Ms.
Well, I was going to announce it later on, but J.B. is now officially married to Betty Fuckley. So it is. They're very happy they made it. How are you doing, J.B.?
I'm great, Matt. Thanks.
That is great. And we have a first-time guest on the podcast. I wrote a little introduction out here. So our guest makes his living in the field of spinal surgeries.
That's true.
He is a playwright, a percussionist who toured internationally with Stomp. He is an actor who was in the first national tour of Train Spotting, playing the lead.
No, not the first.
Not the first national.
Off-Broadway.
Off-Broadway. Sorry. Train Spotting, playing Renton. He's worked with actors you've heard of. You've seen them in film. You've seen them on stage. He was up for roles against people like Paul Rudd. He battled both Hulks, both Norton and Ruffalo.
Oh, I never
for
thought
roles. And sadly lost to the Hulks.
To both.
But he has, and we're going to ask him more about that. And he trained for theater with the illustrious Ms. J.B. Overwing. Please welcome to the podcast, Seth. Now, I got to ask, how do we pronounce your last name?
It's Ullian.
Ullian. See, I wasn't sure if it was Ullian or Ullian.
Yeah.
Welcome, Seth Ullian, to the podcast.
I feel like I've known you long enough that it's weird that you don't know that, but that's my fault.
Well, it's really that you're like, we're hanging out and I call you by your full name.
I say, right. Seth
Wait,
Robert Ullian.
Hey, Matt.
Seth Robert.
Yes.
Matt, how do you say my last name?
Scott Santorum.
It's a hard one. Do you know?
Wait, your last name?
All right, never mind. Seth, those are some pretty impressive credentials, but
are they?
They are, but we do have our hazing ceremony for first timers.
Yes.
So you need to put on the ceremonial cloak, walk into the darkened room, and step on the platform, and we'll come meet you in about 5 minutes.
Just bend over and don't ask any questions.
Hey man, I'm game for anything. That's why I showed up.
Elizabeth and I. Elizabeth and I.
Ben is muted, by the way.
Oh,
sorry.
Had to drink some terrible beer that Ben brought in for us.
It was a really good beer, but it was so wasted on you guys.
It tasted like soy sauce.
That was your trial by fire.
Oh, brutal.
Well, we've got
that was probably like a $50 a can.
It was an imperial stout.
Yeah, right, yeah.
It poured like
some kind of barley wine or something.
Hey guys, I'm back.
Hey, Ben is back.
My whatever was happening, I don't know if it's the mic or, something. It's just like the whole system started screaming at me.
Oh,
and like 1,000 decibels.
Would you like us to?
At least we know he wasn't Googling how to make his microphone work a moment ago.
Would you like to dial back in, Ben, and maybe see if that fixes the problem? We'll
I don't think I switched headphones and I was getting the same problem. And it's not the mic.
It might be just your Zoom, but
well, no, it was the out. Like I was fine, and then all of a sudden it just went what? Zip. But anyways,
I think Matt wants you to give him a little extra time. He's just watching a movie on his desktop.
I'm just listening to your audio is just coming through the computer now. So.
Which one of you guys is in LA? And
I'm in LA.
Oh, you're in LA. Okay. So where are you been?
He's local, but he had to.
I'm in the room right behind you.
Oh, there you go. Fuck me. It's terrifying.
I
thought the studio seemed too crowded today, and I was like, nah.
Ben doesn't like eye contact, so he's just secretly watching like Prince, just like peeking up behind the window.
Ben is waiting for you to go into the hazing room where he is waiting.
I mean, if you saw the lead up and what was happening to this podcast, then you'll understand why I'm doing this from home tonight.
Thank you, sir. May I have
amazing.
another?
Well, so Seth, I mean, obviously we cover quite a bit of movies and TV on here, and I pick Ben and Nick's brains constantly because they went to film school. Very fancy, and they know a lot of very fancy, famous people. So I have to ask. So one of the movies you auditioned for and made it fairly far in is Primal Fear.
That's true.
Which is a movie we have discussed a couple of times on the podcast. What was that process like for you?
Jesus Christ, it was a long time ago. It was. I honestly, I was probably 22 years old, 22, 23 when I did that, which is a long ass time ago. And I mean, it was just this sort of endless parade of readings and callbacks, and they love you, and I think they're choosing you. They're not sure. They think we're gonna blah, blah, blah. And it was it eventually it ended up being it's down to you and this other guy, and at the time neither of us were anybody.
Well, and that guy he's had nothing of a career, right? That guy's gone nowhere.
It's funny. I feel like they kind of wasted the film on this guy because what the hell else came?
Such a strong start, and then
and as Matt was describing all of the people I literally have lost roles. It's why I stopped acting, to be honest with you. I've lost roles to amazing actors, and I cannot fault the directors or the casting people with one choice they made. They were all great. You know what I mean? I was probably fine, but they were they didn't do wrong. They did, they made a pretty good choice. Like all those guys. Paul Rudd, pretty good. Mark Ruffalo, pretty good.
Ed Norton, pretty
Ed Norton, pretty good.
I'm pretty sure that movie had its world premiere at the theater I worked at as a teenager.
In Baltimore?
In Baltimore, yeah.
Really?
Oh wow.
Yeah, I lost Boiler
Eddie
Room to Giovanni Ribisi. That was another one. Yep, he's pretty good.
He is.
But listen, he's not Marvel like the other three, so he doesn't really matter. Like you were this close to the MCU, but still, as it stands, the only member of the podcast to be a part of the MCU is Nick Santacroce.
Oh,
this is true. Nick Santacroce is canon. He is canon in the Marvel Universe as for his appearance in She-Hulk.
Oh, what did he do?
That is true. She-Hulk swiped right on me on Tinder.
Oh yeah,
she did.
That is amazing.
I remember that scene. I remember. Yeah. I love that show.
And he's shirtless, and it says he's a DJ.
I'm the only shirtless
it says
person
he's a
featured.
Oh my god, I love that.
My favorite part about that still to this day is they had to get releases for Nick for like 5 episodes because it was part of the previously on She-Hulk. For every episode was her on the app swiping, and they're like, and he's the one main image that you can really catch on there, which is that is still my favorite. My favorite thing is that
gonna hang my hat on that for many years.
Oh, I gotta rewatch that.
There are a lot of listeners of the podcast that She-Hulk viewership actually goes up after every episode of the new way that airs.
Well, anything with Tatiana Maslany. I mean,
she's wonderful. God, she's a fantastic one.
Oh baby.
Like Seth, as an actor, do you have a fame?
Jesus.
Oh my lord. I asked you all of these same questions, JB. So next, Luna and Marco will want to do an episode with just Seth. So it's going to happen. Do you have a favorite of anything that you've done, of a performance, a role?
Wow, what a weird. I suppose probably Killer Joe, I guess, was probably the best one that I was the proudest of. I mean, was that Michael Shannon or no? I took over for Michael Shannon. I took the role. I took the role over. So this was like my whole career was really taking roles over for people. So like when I did Trainspotting, people were like, "Oh, the Ewan McGregor role." I was like, "Yeah, the fucking Ewan McGregor." And then it was like I took over for Mike Shannon, but he was like quite literally there when I started. And they kind of rotate. The cast just a bunch. There was a big exodus, and then I came in.
And that was a wonderful off-Broadway play with Michelle Williams.
And Michelle Williams played my sister, and we were super. It's funny. You asked me like what's off limits, and I was like, I wonder what's the listenership of this?
Nothing.
Okay. So there's some weird shit that went down there, like that
with Michelle.
With not so much with Michelle. I mean, she was amazing, and she was like just off Dawson Creek,
right?
And she like had never done theater. She was delightful. She was so, like literally both feet. She'd never done theater. She was absolutely committed to it, and so there's this dude named Paul Dillon who was in one of the Austin Powers movies. He was like Patty McSomething or another. You know what I'm talking about?
He strangles him with the shamrock things. He's one of the henchmen of Dr. Evil.
Yes. Yeah. And then Lori Petty, who was Tank Girl.
Yes.
Who, like, when I met them, I loved them. But like Paul was Killer Joe when I started doing it. And then Lori was playing one of the mom. And oh my God, I feel like I'm dishing here.
I love it. This is
No, you're saying what happened.
This is the quietest Ben, Nick, and I have been ever on the podcast.
So they like tortured Michelle Williams throughout this experience. It was like it was rough. It was horrible because she and we were sisters and brother and sister, and we had this very close relationship in the show, and so we got pretty close while we were doing it. And obviously, this is many years ago, so I have not called Michelle Williams in many years, so sorry, but
she changed her number.
She's like, stop fucking calling me, you son of a bitch.
Let's send her a Zoom link. Just have her join.
We'll send one to Betty as well.
Be like, hey, it's all going on now. But yeah, so she was amazing. She really it was new to her, and like to modulate her performance for stage when she's used to television where you're smaller, where you're more intimate, that was new to her. You know what I mean? And then but she was fucking brilliant. And these two, oh my God, this is hilarious. I can't even believe this is why you pour such a fucking large glass of scotch, right? Whiskey. So right, I make
bad. The things I got Ben's dad to say about students.
I make bad choices, right?
Headmaster for it, yeah.
But Sethy, this stuff really happened. I mean,
it totally did. So here's the thing. So like they were like so cruel to her, and they were like, she's ruining the show. Oh, it's a night. Oh, blah blah blah. It was they were so mean to her, and they had coupled up. They were boning, and and it was this team. It was them.
Yeah, there we go.
It was this team where they were like, fucking. He was Killer Joe. He was like playing I think in the movie it was Matthew McConaughey, but it was Scott Glenn in the original play, and they were just so fucking nasty to her, and so she and I became this kind of like, and they were cool with me, but like I had to like kind of shield her from that whole experience, and then. She was fucking amazing. I mean, it was utter bullshit. Yeah. They were great too. I mean, the show was really good. And then, but because like
But
they're.
fuck them for being mean.
I know. I was so pissed about that.
Well, here's how I know that there's beef, Seth.
Say
is
what?
You have a relatively storied actor like Lori Petty, and you reference her as Tank Girl. I was like,
That's how I always
well
think
done,
of
sir.
her. I mean, I did love, what was it, the Station 11 or Station whatever?
Yes. We were talking about that. I just saw her in that recently.
I do actually love that show, but it was I think that her career took a shit on a no small part due to like the way she just karma wise. I don't even know if it was like legitimately because of that. Like, I don't think Michelle turned around and was like, fucking black belt Paul that bitch. You know what I mean?
No, but I've heard from even from just a film like fan standpoint, Lori Petty's one of those names that pops up every so often of like, whatever happened to Lori Petty?
Yeah.
And then she'll
And it's
show up.
literally in her name.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Very appropriate.
Exactly.
You're not wrong.
It's not her name. It's a warning.
It was,
Right.
it was literally until she got picked up again by Orange is the New Black. That was like the thing that got her back into kind of doing it. She did her time out for 10, 12 years.
I wonder if it was
the
because of
thing
that.
Yeah.
If you're really great to work with and you can draw an audience and make a studio money, you're going to work until the end of time.
Right.
The moment you stop becoming profitable, you can't be an asshole.
Right.
You can't be both.
Right.
I forgot who
Chevy.
Ben,
It's Chevy.
Bell.
We talked about this. It's Chevy Chase versus Bill Murray. Bill Murray makes money and continues to be an asshole and still gets cast in things. Chevy Chase stopped making money for things and was an asshole, and they're like, "Well, you don't exist anymore."
Do you know what I did? A movie with Chevy Chase, and I actually thought he was delightful.
What movie?
So this is, you'll never have seen it because it was never released. There was a Stomp movie that was made in Romania. This is where I met my wife.
That's how Seth met Paula.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh!
And it was in Romania, and Chevy Chase. We did this bar scene. It was this big musical number, and he was the bartender, and there was like sort of absentmindedly putting drinks down in a rhythmic fashion, and it was a nightmare. He had no idea what he was doing.
Stomp the movie? Are you kidding me?
There was a movie called Vacuums that was made in Bucharest.
Okay.
And it was about two rival vacuum companies. Am I making news?
No, all I know is I watched Nick's rising glee upon hearing "Stomp the Movie," and you were still talking, but I could see
You're talking about rhythmically making noise like this is Stomp the Movie.
Yeah.
Why did it come out?
Because so there was a whole bunch. There was like lawsuits galore. It was one of the producers was Quincy Jones. And it I don't know.
Old hag.
There was a whole thing where so the stars of it were Kip Pardue and Rose McGowan, and who's oh god, I can't remember.
Kip Pardue also, by the way, phenomenal moment in Rules of Attraction. Yeah, is he the one that does the trip to? I think he's the one that does the trip to Europe.
And Rules of Attraction.
Rules of Attraction.
When they actually went on that trip.
It was my favorite scene in that entire movie. It's so good.
Proto Saltburn.
Yes.
Is it? Ooh.
I mean, I feel like it's based. Saltburn is basically Rules of Attraction meets Talented Mr. Ripley.
I'm with you a little bit.
Makes me want to see Rules of Attraction.
With a little more, there's a bit more cum in a bathtub in Saltburn.
Yes.
But there are similarities.
Is there no cum at all in Rules of Attraction?
Oh no,
there's cum. Oh, there's cum.
funny.
Yeah, there's definitely cum.
As long as
It's not
some
the-
cum
not-
somewhere.
Plenty of cum.
Yeah, not in the bathtub.
It was originally called Plenty of
You know
Cum.
what they say? Easy cum.
Jesus Christ.
Oh, Nick.
God, this is what we do. God, we're so good. Where, guys, are we going to take this on the road? I mean, come on now. This is what people love.
You're going to be playing to dozens all over the country.
Listen, our viewership is around 150 to 200 listeners an episode, but some of them are in countries where I'm pretty sure it's bots, but they still
Maybe I
count.
can call in a favor with Henry Zabrowski and open up for Last Podcast on the Left when there's only 5 people in the audience getting drinks.
Yeah, JB is Miss Podcast. She is she's tied into all of these.
Anyway, to loop back around, Stop the Movie never came out.
So you were in this version of Stomp the Movie, but you worked with Chevy Chase.
So yeah, he would we all stayed at the Hilton, at the Bucharest Hilton, and he sat and played piano all day long in the lounge there. There was a piano, and he's a very good piano player. And he would come out. He was a nice dude, man. He was forgetful as hell. The guy had no, which is funny because I've heard he's a bit of a sociopath. But he, when I met him, he was playing football. We were like playing frisbee all day long because we were just outside, like with all the stray dogs and the fleas and shit. And it was cool, man. He was nice. He was not a problem. The other folks there were, kind of divas and everything like that. And there was like literally like 50 stomp, like people, I don't know, 50, 30 like ex-stomp people who were all like making the music and like being all kind of weird characters. And, and then there was all these actors who would come in, and we were like, "Who the fuck are you?" We're all more, we got this shit. This is our show, but nobody cared. So
Seth, this is like we are constantly mining, and Ben and I are often talking about writing things together, and Nick and I are talking about writing things together, and you and I have talked about writing things together. This is the script we need to write. Is that this whole thing? We don't have to use, it doesn't have to be, it can be off-brand stuff, it can be whatever we want it to be. Mm-hmm. But I would watch this movie in a second with this like one celebrity who burned every bridge in Hollywood that winds up in Romania on this like touring company thing, playing piano in a bar and like trying to reboot his career, and a bunch of young people that are like just hungry and banging because they're all just hot young dancers and dudes. Like, this is an amazing story.
It's funny because my reflex when you say that is to take my phone and like in my little text app or my little little task app where I record things and be like, "Ooh, that's a great idea. Let me write that down." But you're recording it. So it's fine.
Well, I'll be honest. We actually don't really record the podcast. This doesn't go anywhere. No one hears this.
Perfect.
Unfortunately, Seth, for better or for worse, this lives in perpetuity.
Yeah, this will always.
I know. That's why I realized like he poured this gigantic fucking whiskey for me when we started, and I was like, and now it's mostly gone, and I'm already making bad decisions.
And there's more where that came from.
Nobody thought you were going to say that Lori Petty and that guy were boning. No, that was like.
Yeah. But I didn't say who that guy was.
No, you didn't.
Right? Oh. Right? I did good.
I think so. Wait, yeah. I also love that JB brought up the one thing you kind of flew under the radar a little bit with. It's like, by the way, in case you listeners weren't paying attention.
Yeah. Be weird if this ended up on Variety, but it won't. It won't, so it's fine.
No, it'll end up on a variety of unlistened to podcasts is the only place to be.
We keep trying to get Betty Buckley to send us cease and desist.
Yeah.
It's my goal.
Just to get this on the map.
We slander her every episode just so I can send it to her agent and be like, "Hey, maybe you should try to sue us."
So, all right, never mind.
Go for it.
No, I was going to say, like, you mentioned at one point Scott Wolf and Matt Fox.
No, I didn't. They did.
Or you all did?
I did. I sure did.
Because, like, I don't know. I don't want to, like, co-opt everything. But, like, because I did work with Scott Wolf. And me and Matt Fox had the same agent. And so me and Matt Fox we used to hang out quite a bit in LA and then sometimes when he would visit New York, because he was a fucking lovely person.
Oh, cool.
Just the nicest
I like
human
to hear
being.
that about people.
Nicest human being.
I mean,
so was Scott, by the way.
Really, until he got lost, he was a working actor for a pretty long time.
Yeah.
I don't like your implications, Ben.
I mean, after Lost, he kind of became a star.
And I don't like your implication.
Are you saying that you liked Lost?
Let's not.
I'm not saying that.
Oh, okay,
I'm saying I loved it.
Oh God, if we the drinking game has just exploded because we hit about 10 of them right in a row there. But yeah, we have a long and sordid history of discussing Lost on this podcast at nausea, and we have not said one new thing about it.
Can I just say one simple thing that I bet no one has said about Lost?
Ooh.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
Guys, go back and watch, because I've watched it 3 times through. Okay. Every time Matthew Fox is in a situation where he's struggling physically, he goes, "Duh." I want you guys to know he says it as clear as day. It's DEH. He's reaching for something. He goes, "Duh." He's crawling through slime. Duh.
He might have learned that from me.
I just want you guys to know, if you go back and watch it.
Falling through slime. What episode was that? Was that a constant?
That was that last season that nobody watched.
Oh, man, JB just made and crushed Nick's dreams in like successively in a row.
No. Nick is now like, well, now it's time for a lost rewatch for the fourth time.
No, I'm dead serious. Watch the first episode where he wakes up from the plane crash. He says
pilot?
"de." The pilot. He says "de" 100 times.
It's gonna be his first words in the show. It's not the eye opening. You're just gonna hear "duh," and now it's gonna be ruined for all of us.
And the best part is he probably said "duh" on set, and then they had to bring him back into the studio to do "duh" ADR.
Yeah.
Can you diff for me?
A little bit more of a strange death. Not quite so emphatic.
First of all, this will be a soundboard drop by the next episode, but also I love the idea that there is like somewhere in the sound repository, like the Wilhelm scream, there's the Matthew Fox dit, and that's just used for other random things in video games and movies and all kinds.
All
of
right,
stuff.
Maddie, can we get that down one more time? Can we this time? Can we make it sound like you're passing a kidney stone? All right, and go.
Yeah, that was great, but I'm sure you got something else in you.
I'm not really feeling that dick.
Can we get a more romantic "de"?
Yeah.
Now, I know we're running a little long here on our open, but I would be.
Is this
remiss.
an open?
This is our open. We're not even in the podcast.
Oh
yet.
my god! This
Now-
feels like the podcast.
Now, Ben, I would be remiss for all of our listeners out there, and specifically one listener, to not mention you are taking a trip this weekend, are you not?
Oh, I am.
And where might you be heading on your journeys?
Some place in the middle of fucking nowhere called Anna, Texas.
Ooh.
That's the sequel to Paris, Texas.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
It's just next to Paris.
Yes.
I'm going to Mr. Ryan Alexander Hamilton's nuptials.
Our very own he and Greg were probably our original super fans, but I think Ryan has made a much bigger splash and still listens to the show versus Greg tapped out many years ago. But Ryan is probably our number one super fan. You've heard him do many an erotic reading on air.
Erotic or neurotic?
Erotic and neurotic.
Okay.
And it's important that we make the distinction: a fan, not friend. Otherwise, he would have invited me and Matt to his wedding.
No, he invited me, but I can't go.
Oh, I knew it.
I have ragtime rehearsal.
Well, priorities are priorities.
All I wanted, if you go back and listen to the very first episode he was on, all I did was try to be his friend. All I did, and somehow along the way, I became like his nemesis. Like half.
It was
nemesis.
amazing. I will say,
what happened? Where did the start of that happen? You think?
Well, it was so.
Is it when I talk about loss all the time?
No, our long time our long time listeners know that Ryan's first episode on the podcast was an argument over whether or not Tom Hanks in Big had sex with an adult woman.
That's right.
And to what degree did he finish or not finish, or did she finish or not finish, or how far along in the process they get?
How did that end? What was the
we all
resolution
disagreed.
of that?
I think Nick did not agree with Ryan. Ryan's
I listened
maybe
to this
you were
again.
you were on his side.
We were mostly on the same page, and something went horribly. Our relationship went horribly astray at some point, and then he didn't invite me to his wedding. And I'm trying to figure out exactly where, because he backed me up, and I backed him up. You know.
But seriously,
I thought it really beautiful.
But honestly, like but I'm curious because it's been a while since I've seen it.
Yeah.
Was there
has sex.
consummation?
I believe he puts his penis in her vagina
and finishes.
It's the implication.
The implication. I believe.
Do you think he blows? You think he blows?
I think he
a
blows
load?
immediately. But then Ryan's definition was more that he finished before he could get in.
Like it was like on her belly.
Yeah, and then he couldn't do it because he was already done.
Right, and so he was like in his refractory period.
Yes,
that was sort of the middle ground. But Seth, I urge you to rewatch this film. And
I feel like I have
not,
to now.
I'm not arguing that the clear implication is that they do have sex.
Yes.
I'm not arguing that. However, it is left open in a way that if you watch it with this narrative in the back of your head, it works, right? So you have Elizabeth Perkins, who is like the office slut, right?
She's so hot.
Yeah. We all want
and
a
like
piece of that.
everyone always talks about her behind her back. It's like, oh, you want a little action, go to her, right? And finally, she meets this.
Said by John Lovitz in the gayest way possible, but yeah. I wish she'd wrap her legs around me.
That was a little Paul Lynde. That was a little more Paul Lynde than John Lovitz.
Yes, please.
Thanks.
But like here she is, and at first Tom Hanks is just another guy she's gonna sleep with, but she gets to his loft with a trampoline and all these kids. So she starts to realize, oh, this guy is perhaps maybe not what I pegged him to be. Something's going on. She look at her eyes when she scans this crazy apartment. And any adult,
first of all, Nick,
adult would see that and go, "Oh, this person's not,
Nick,
wait, a reasonable partner."
I'm going to correct you.
And I'm not saying that she's like, oh, she could see a trampoline and some Hasbro toys on the ground, and she shouldn't immediately jump to, oh, this is probably an 11-year-old who was casting a spell from a machine on Coney Island and put in the body of an adult. But there were warning signs.
And Nick, first of all, Nick, you ignorant slut.
All right.
You are conflating two separate scenes. The scene where she comes in the first night and does the sleepover and does the stuff, they sleep in bunk beds and they do not fuck. The second time they go out and
the
they
first
dance,
night for sure.
They
for
go
sure.
out and they dance and they have the romantic thing after the Ferris wheel and the roller coaster, and they have this they sing it, and she comes to his apartment, and now she's not in the fucking kid mode anymore. She takes her top off. Then he turns the lights back on because Tom Hanks likes tits because he's after my own heart. It's why I love him so much.
And also not his apartment.
Most of his career is all about titties.
Yes, and they have an unsatisfying sexual encounter.
Oh, and so also, I would just take a quick pause. You know about that thing about like walking into somebody's apartment or house and then feeling like an 11-year-old lives there?
All right, Ben.
I'd like everyone in the studio to look around the room.
Ben, I fucking hate you so much, Ben. I fucking hate you so much.
And think about it. If it's really a child, I think that could be put in the position where Elizabeth Perkins is taking off her shirt and they could be excited by that.
Nick,
but are they going to know what to do?
Nick.
Are they going to know what to do? Is it going to go anywhere? I mean, to me,
Nick.
the next day, he's like, that was great. I got to see boobs.
Yeah. But now, was he 11? Was he 13?
Why are we talking about this again?
All right.
Well, I don't have any history with you guys, but like,
the most amazing thing is this is literally the same podcast we did 5 years ago.
I just
We're
have to ask,
arguing
though.
about Lost and Big. It's the same goddamn episode.
But was he 11 or 13?
A
Was he
pandemic
wasn't he
happened
13?
between the. He was.
I'm looking it up.
12. I think it's 12, 13.
It's very different. Because
Seth, I don't like the path you're going down right now, and I think it's going to reflect negatively.
12.
Okay.
12.
He's 12. Okay. Then that's horrible. That's disgusting. God damn it. If he was 13,
don't say
fucking
it, Seth.
go for it, dude.
No, Seth. Don't do it, Seth.
I can't.
All right. Anyway, so moving along, where we wish Ryan and his wife.
The scene they cut is like, oh man, Josh laid pipe like no one I've ever known in my life. It was so fucking.
He bangs like a 13-year-old.
So did I.
Okay. Anyway,
can we get some more scotch in here?
Yeah. I feel like, hey, I know why you poured this so tall, but now my glass is almost empty.
I know.
That's a problem.
This is what happened. Well, you're gonna have time to refill here in a second. So,
all right, good.
It is time to get to our topic.
Yeah, I guess we haven't started. Right?
We have not started the
can't even believe
podcast
that.
yet. Just a brief 33-minute preamble. No big deal. It's all good times. So one of the reasons that Seth is in the studio tonight is that he was talking about a film that we had a slightly different reaction to, and I know Nick and I had a similarly similar reaction to, which is Bradley Cooper's currently Oscar-nominated, not going to win anything film, Maestro. Oh, yeah. And I'm sorry, it's true. As much as Bradley misses Leonard and has told Leonard's family how much he misses him, I will say...
Hold on, Matt. We have got to contextualialize that, please.
I promise we will get there.
Okay,
I just want to
right.
get into just introduce the
Got
topic.
it.
So
Got
it made me think. So one of my reactions to Maestro was that I felt it was one of the instances where an actor becoming a director and then directing themselves was not helpful to the movie. That I felt that you need to maybe have one or the other on there, and that it became such a passion project from a look at me as a director and look at me as an actor standpoint that it kind of hurt the film overall. And so the JB, he wants more whiskey.
What, should I just pour whiskey?
Yes.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
throw
Just
an
a
ice
little bit
cube in
though.
there.
It doesn't have
Throw
to
an
be.
ice cube in
Doesn't
there.
have to be a ton. Just like not the whole thing. Like just a little bit.
And can you make him a sandwich while you're in there?
I wish she had heard that. She'll hear it on the playback and fucking love it. It's gonna be amazing.
Fingers crossed.
Or you're gonna. I'll give her your address. No, so it brought up the concept to me that something we've talked about these individually at some point here and there, but we've never done a podcast where we actually tackle actors turned directors, and I think it's such an interesting niche for me.
That's wild. We haven't done that.
It really, and honestly, it surprised me that we haven't, especially since we are such big fans of Kevin Costner, Sir Kevin Costner, on this podcast.
I'm sorry. Is that true?
Ben and I are huge fans of Kevin Costner. It's on our website for Last Pint Productions, lastpintprod.com.
That's cool.
Nick is maybe a little more lukewarm, but Nick was a late addition to the podcast, so it doesn't count. But no, Nick actually got the podcast back off the ground, but that's a story for another day. So I'm
Goddamn right I did.
I'm especially interested, considering we also have some actors here in the room with us to kind of discuss what makes an actor a good director, what actors have made good directors, what actors have made bad directors, and specifically for me, is it important that they are directing themselves in a movie versus them directing a movie or a TV series without them starring in it? I know that's a lot of questions there. But Ben, I want to kick off with you a little bit. From your standpoint, when you look at really, really good actors turned directors, what are the things that you think make them so successful, if they're being successful, and what are their pitfalls?
Well, also I would qualify the title of director, because I think that there are a lot of actors that as they go further and further along in their careers become actually really good filmmakers, whether they're just producing the film or they're contributing to the script or co-writing it. There are plenty of actors that have never directed a film that have, like, for all intents and purposes, they have enough creative control or creative influence that they're, directing is a team sport, or excuse me, filmmaking is a team sport, and they're contributing something that I think would be equivalent to what the director might even bring. When they're talking about like a Tom Cruise or a John Cusack or some of these other actors that were just doing it for so long and then started writing on their own and started, this is my producing team. Okay, well, let's revise the story. Let's make, that type of thing. Sorry. Because ultimately when it comes down to it, I would say I think the smart thing that people would say about directing is it's about communication. You have to be very clear in what you want. And that's mostly, I think, the first responsibility is to your actors. And the second is to, I guess, the world that you're trying to build around those performances in that story. In most cases, the person directing the film wasn't the principal writer on it. So, I think that's why maybe a lot of actors can make that jump pretty easily. Because they've worked with directors, they kind of absorb everything that they're seeing, and every experience they've gone through, and then that matriculates into sort of the own way that they, and they also know, I think one thing that actors do typically know well is the more talent you surround yourself with, the better the film is going to turn out to be.
Yeah, and
I'm saying the points there.
No, and it's interesting because it's I talk a lot on this podcast about the Smartless podcast, and one of the things I really love about it is listening to Jason Bateman talk about anytime he has a director on, he's picking their brain about a number of things. But there was a really interesting episode this week where they had Josh Brolin on. Josh Brolin was going to be directing.
Don't blow it for me.
It's going to be. I won't. This is a small moment in it.
Just that's Barbra Streisand.
They do make a reference to that, by the way.
Just want to be clear.
So Brolin was going to be directing an episode of this like cowboy series that he was doing, I think for Amazon. So he called up Bateman, kind of looking for advice, and Bateman's advice was fantastic to me.
Outer Range?
Yeah, Outer Range. Correct.
He
was an episode. He was going to direct it.
That's one of Amy Simons is like an executive.
Yeah. And she's also all over. She's 2 episodes of Mr. and Mrs. Smith, by the way. But that's neither here nor there. But what was really interesting is
What do you mean? She's an actor turned director. She's exactly there.
This is true. This is actually very, very true. So Bateman's advice to him was such an actory response, which I think was also kind of interesting because Ben, you touched on something that I want to get onto here as well. But but basically Bateman said, he goes, spend your time on the day players. Don't worry about your leads. Don't worry about the stuff. He goes, you're going to have a bunch of day players in your show that are delivering a line or 2 lines or 3 lines or whatever, and they can make or break any scene that you've got. Everyone else you've cast and you've put together, and they know what to do. Make sure that those day player parts don't drag it down, especially if you've got a bunch of them all over the episode, which I thought was kind of a really interesting. That's an actory thing to come to.
But see, even for that to work, you have to sort of be an actor's director, right? And like Ben and I, we took film theory classes, we took a documentary class, we took a cinematography class, we learned the X's and O's, how to expose for certain light, which lenses to use for certain shots, composition, right? But we also had a directing actors course that we specifically learned how do you elicit the right kind of performance? How do you relate to an actor who is most likely coming from a very different world? You know, the stereotype is all the filmy nerds are behind the camera and the theater kids are in front of it. And maybe they don't know how the sausage is made in the other's respective industry, right? What actors turned directors already have in their cap is that shorthand, how to talk to actors. So that's a really great tip, but you still kind of have to have that, you know?
Yeah.
And that's why I think that the actor-based directors who are the best at their craft were actors first. They have that part of it kind of dialed in. They know how to talk to their actors. But not every actor is a big film buff or a filmy, you know? The ones that are can put it all together. And in a lot of ways, I mean, think about it this way, right? There's only one director ever whose first 3 movies was nominated for Best Picture. Do you know who it is?
When an actor turned director?
Bradley Cooper.
Yeah. Almost.
No, was it Warren Beatty?
No, it is Greta Gerwig. She's
Greta, yeah.
She's directed 3 films, and every single one has been nominated for Best Picture.
Wait,
the only and like you said, Seth, the only person. Well, you got Little Women, Barbie, and Lady Bird.
Lady Bird, yep.
But
I didn't know she directed Little Women. Actually,
yeah,
wow.
and like
she directs Big Women too. But
the only other person that even has a chance to tie this, of course, they've only done 2 movies. Both have been nominated for Best Picture. Their next one has to be nominated, and that is Bradley Cooper. Yeah. So that's the only person that and they're both actor turned director. So is there something there? You can argue that very easily.
You guys, I would urge you though to differentiate between a television director and a film director because they're very different.
Yeah, that is very true. And I think there's something also really interesting here that Ben, you've brought this up a lot of times when I've picked Ben's brain many times on the podcast and off about like indie directors that get a Marvel movie and being like, how do you go from doing, you know, safety not guaranteed to directing a Marvel film. And I think that's
nepotism.
I think one of those things, it's very much in this wheelhouse of kind of what everyone's talking about here, and it's why Bradley Cooper gets kind of, I'm going to say, a little bit lucky versus Greta Gerwig. She's getting some of the same help, but not quite as much. Is that Cooper has worked with a bunch of really big directors and DPs,
And learn from them.
and
Yeah,
not
of
even
course.
just learning. He has a Rolodex when he goes out to make a movie of DPs, of AD. He has a team that he can call.
You think she doesn't?
I don't know that she has in Lady Bird. No, I don't
She
think.
had a shitload more indie cred. I mean, she was
Yeah.
in like 5 Noah Baumbach movies.
Yeah,
and-
but she's not. But
Well,
she's
and
not.
one.
But she's not. But again,
I think I can read the subtext. What Matt's trying to say is she's a woman.
Jesus Christ. Oh God. No, I think that like
I think any director has a Rolodex of people. That's just
no, but I
movie.
think a George Clooney and a Bradley Cooper's Rolodex is like at a level to where they like. I think Clooney is I think Clooney's a better director than Cooper by leaps and bounds, and started with much more of an indie flick versus I think Cooper doing Star is Born had access to like a treasure trove of tools with that movie that
I'm
maybe
sorry,
other people
I'm getting
don't.
heated as the only woman
Okay,
here.
please,
go,
please.
go,
I'm-
go,
I'm
go,
getting
go, go,
heated.
go.
The reason Bradley Cooper has a bigger Rolodex than Greta Gerwig is because Bradley Cooper is a bigger movie star. I'm sorry,
Yes.
that's all it is.
Correct.
And
No,
George
correct.
Clooney, the same thing. They're more famous.
Yeah.
If Julia Roberts decided to start directing movies, she would have the same fucking Rolodex that George Clooney has.
Yeah.
It's not about Greta Gerwig as a woman. That's not what it's about.
I promise that was not at all where I was going with
Okay,
that.
okay,
I was
okay,
absolutely
that's cool.
going in the fact that Bradley Cooper did The Hangover and then did a Clint Eastwood movie and did all these other things, and because of that, when he goes out and decides he wants to make his first movie,
Right.
he has access to a lot more things than she does, not because of their gender, but
Because
because
he's
he's made
famous.
more.
Now-
He's made more money in Hollywood. Than
Did she
has.
direct like Frances Ha, or was she? Did she?
No,
Was she just in that?
Frances Ha was Noah Baumbach.
Yeah. So, who has obviously become her creative partner?
and real life partner?
Yeah, they're a couple. Oh, I didn't know that. All right, but which is wonderful. God bless them. I hope things go well. But like, in terms of like, I mean, that movie was spectacular, but she just comes from a different tradition. I mean, Bradley
She comes from indie film, which
exactly.
in my opinion, which is honestly kind of where the actor turned director sort of started.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It was not a big thing. It was not something that a lot of people did traditionally in Hollywood. Cassavetes in the getting into the 60s,
Yeah.
that's the time where you're sudden seeing these actors who are going
That's who now?
Cassavetes.
What year is this? This pre-code?
Stop
It's pre-COVID. Did you say?
The pre-code.
it
Ben
was
loves
that-
pre-code
it wa-
movies, so
Here's the
Dick's
thing.
mean and Dick.
It was that next generation of actors where you had Eastwood, Redford, Beatty.
I was going to say Redford. Yeah.
Zach Braff.
You had all of those guys in the 70s that all of a sudden were like, well, no, I want to do it. I want to do it that way. Where I have the control over it.
And Ben,
so
who is the big actor in the 80s, you would say, that went from like major movie star actor to director in the 80s?
Oh, Ron Howard.
Yes.
That's not what I'm thinking. I was wondering if there was anyone else on your mind.
Rob Reiner.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's a million of them. I mean,
I'm
there's a
thinking
million.
females. I'm thinking females who broke glass ceilings.
Nora Ephron.
Barbra Streisand.
I thought Greta Gerwig.
Wait, hold on.
Oh, yeah,
she
well,
direct?
Barbra Streisand, yeah, of course you're talking about
I don't
a
like
huge-
to correct you, JB, but Greta Gerwig was the first female director. I don't know if you knew that.
I'm just saying
All the men got together and we decided we would let her do it.
I thought Bradley Cooper was the first female director. He really inhabited that role.
Ben just stated that a lot of indie film film actors went from being indie film actors to directors, and I'm just saying she's an example of someone who very early on, I mean early on by the 80s, but early on who went from, huge Hollywood star to also direct.
I'm sorry.
would like
What did
to
Barbara? What did
qualify
she
that.
direct? I don't know that. I'm not familiar with
Yentl.
that. Oh, she did.
No,
Oh, bless her. I love that.
I want to qualify that and clarify what I was saying. I was saying that it was the immediately preceding indie film generation that inspired all of those stars in the 70s to become their own.
Oh,
directors,
I see.
in my
Okay,
opinion.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood you.
Right. And so that's what I'm saying. That's when you saw that huge influx of actors that wanted. It was because in the 60s, Cassavetes was doing it. It's because...
But before that, there was a huge one.
I think
a giant one that I think kicked it off.
Oh, who?
Oh, who are you going to say?
Charlie Chaplin.
Orson Welles. Charlie Chaplin
Well,
also.
Orson
but
Welles is a
Orson
good
Welles.
one.
But Orson Welles was it literally was the definition of control freak that took his leading of theater and acting, and it was just like, I don't want to fucking trust anyone else with shit. I want to control every aspect of it.
But was he
was
an
an
established
film
actor? Was he an established actor before he directed
Yes.
himself?
Oh,
Probably.
yeah.
You know,
Very much
I mean,
so. Oh, yeah.
I think at the end of the day, that's literally what every single actor probably wants, and it's just like how the odds of working out as an actor are this big. They're tiny, and it's like you, and then every semi-successful actor thinks, I could do this better. I could do this better. And how many of them can? Like, the tiniest percentage can actually do it better. But the ones who do, like, the Redfords or, maybe, depending, I guess, what you think about Bradley Cooper. But, like, the
Afflecks.
And the Afflecks. And, I mean, I'm
Jordan
so...
Peele.
Jordan
Jordan
bless
Peele.
fucking
Yeah.
yes, Jordan. But, like, I'm so conflicted on Affleck. Like, sometimes I
Mel
love what he
Gibson.
does. And then sometimes ooh, yeah.
No,
That's a lot. That's a
literally.
lot to stomach.
Mel Gibson.
when we came into
We
this-
cannot
when we
ignore
came-
him on this.
No, when we came into this conversation, I literally had Mel Gibson as the first person on
Yeah.
my list.
No
My
kidding.
first two people on the list were Mel Gibson and Jodie Foster, which it's
Cool.
insane to me that those were the first two to talk about.
Cool.
I had on my list, I had Joel Edgerton. You know why? Because I thought The Gift was
The Gift is a great movie.
was a
Yes.
very brilliantly directed movie.
He
In fact, it was
directed
one of,
The Gift?
yeah.
No, that's Sam Raimi.
No, not the Sam Raimi. The Gift.
No, the
No,
other. the-
Danny Elfman is a demonic
Stop,
fiddler
stop,
in that movie.
Stop. It's
true.
different. It's a different movie. It's a different movie. Not
Oh.
not the Katie Holmes topless movie that you're talking about, which is how it's affectionately known.
There's a Katie Holmes movie?
Yeah.
I just watched a Katie Holmes movie recently. Was
Okay.
it where she was a murderess?
Sorry.
What was it called? Do you know what I'm talking about? Where she was like this, like it was like this do 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 do. She was like this like lovely little school teacher, but she was a vigilante killer. Do you know about this?
You heard of this?
Oh my
No,
God.
I don't
She's
know
been
this.
To me,
a
it
lot.
sounds like you're like describing like a version of Promising Young Woman, but that was definitely not her.
But it was not. It was nothing like. No, literally, she was this very dainty, like, oh mother, I'm just going to try to do my best in the world. And
I've
yet-
never even.
Oh my! I stumbled
JB
across
didn't
it.
do it for air, but
and
she
I-
just yawned
All right,
so graphically.
Now I have to watch. Now I have to figure out what this was because it was
Matt.
Fantastic.
it was utter garbage, by the way. But it was entertaining. And
Well, we were just talking about actors who've become directors, and so
sorry, I'm sorry to like
I
You
think
know what I
that-
just put together?
Yes.
Get this, Matt. So
Uh-oh.
we were talking about Wet Hot American Summer being one of my top three comedies of all time. Think about the actor turned directors
Just
tree.
from that movie.
Just in that movie. Showalter, Wayne, Elizabeth Banks,
Yeah.
Bradley Cooper.
And
Banks is a really good
if
one.
you want to go into most profitable writers of all time, Ben Garant and Thomas Lennon for the Night at the Museum movies, which made them goddamn billionaires. So there's a lot to be said. I wanna pivot a little bit here and go a little bit more off of, because I do think it is important. I also love that it has come up a lot here organically. But
When are we getting a Zach Braff?
we're not going to get to Zach. It's funny.
damn it.
I didn't even put him on my list. It was just funny enough. I was a huge fan of Scrubs and some of his movies, but I do want to focus a little bit on the female-led movies because there were some here that I was not aware of. So like Jodie Foster and Greta Gerwig, I'm definitely familiar with, but I was reading a lot about Regina King. And kind of her contribution to this, which is a huge. It like when you talk about a niche within a niche within a niche, or a minority within a minority, going into making it from becoming an actor, becoming a director, and doing that as a female, as doing that as a black female. That's a huge thing, and I think that like that's kind of, and she's someone that worked with. Like directly preceding her directorial debut, she was working with Barry Jenkins on Beale Street. So I think that's one of those cases again where a lot of these actors get to work with filmmakers and learn from the filmmakers they're working with. They work with these powerhouses, and the ones that are smart and have an affinity for it are using that as class. Like this is not just them going to act in a movie. They're watching everything. And I think that's, even though he is TV, I think that's something that Jason Bateman talks about a lot, is that every time was on a set doing something, he was watching and trying to learn shit. Are you trying to see what's playing on my TV?
Are you watching Seinfeld?
No,
Matt?
I'm on IMDb and they automatically play goddamn ads on there. So it was an episode of Seinfeld.
But that is, Matt, that's what Bateman is saying is what I kind of love about actors who become directors. I'm sorry, I'm not being cute by bringing up Barbra Streisand. I'm reading her.
I want to talk about this.
Yeah,
to be honest,
I'm reading her autobiography right now, so I just can speak from her experience. They literally walk up to the camera and say, "Can I look through it? Can I? Not." They don't even wait until the dailies. They wait until the right then and there and say, "Can I watch that back? Can I? What kind of lens are you using? What angle are you coming from? That kind of thing." And I think Bateman's right on. That's what makes an actor become a good director, is that as an actor they were asking those questions, and they were, I want to name other women. Sorry if you guys don't mind. I don't think I'm pronouncing her name right, but Melanie Laurent.
Laurent.
Yeah, unbelievable, right? And Inglourious Bastards, unbelievable. But was like not a famous person, and was asking the questions and saying, how does this work, and how do you what angle is best for me, and what should I look for when I'm asking for an angle, and what should I look for if I'm not allowed to ask for an angle but I'm being told what the angle is, you know what I mean, that kind of thing. And I think that's what made her such a, right away from just acting to directing, boom, she hit it, I think it's about asking questions, and I think actors are so trained to ask questions. We just are, and that's a really good segue into directing.
Yeah, that's a really, really great, because that's kind of, so in theory, right? And you can kind of, I will say one of two of the most successful, but I'll say maybe the most successful from actor to director, and especially also from child actor to director, is someone like Ron Howard, right?
Totally.
Who had to literally reinvented themselves to where people kept joking, being like, "Oh, I guess Opie's directing movies now,"
yes.
and it was such a joke to them.
But it wasn't just movies; they were like Spielberg level cultural phenomena.
Oh, sure. He took all of the shit that Spielberg kind of wanted to do but wouldn't do, like Willow and that kind of shit, and did it. And made such a career of movies. And I know, Ben, you and I, we maybe disagree a little bit on Ron Howard's capacity to direct, I suppose, but or skill at direction.
I just think his filmography it wildly varies in quality. That's all.
I think that's correct.
But doesn't anything that if you're taking a shot, you know what I mean? If you're taking a big swing, isn't it going to vary? I mean, I think the whole point of being a director or being an artist generally is just to I'm gonna fucking take this gigantic swing, and if you know what, I hope it works. But if it's going to work without fail, then there's no point in doing it. You know what I mean?
Ron Howard made Splash and gave Ben Wilson his first erection, and he doesn't want to give him any credit.
First of all, you're talking about me. I'm not in the room, and that's wrong. But Ben, go on. Ben, go.
No, all I was gonna say is it's not. It's more of a technical thing for me. I love what Ron Howard said one time, where he's like, "Listen, you can look back at your filmography and just be like, wow, that was a really great one. This wasn't so good. This one ultimately was a bad experience, etc." But he's like, when you're in it and when you're making it, it is your child,
right?
And you fall in love with it, and you fall in love with the process of making that specific movie.
Yeah.
No,
so I have nothing but respect for Ron Howard. I think he's like I said, he's shown me that he can make fabulous movies. He's made a bunch of them.
Yeah.
I like a lot of his movies. There's others where I'm just like, wow. I mean,
if you say one bad thing about Backdraft, I will fucking end you right now.
No, but if you take a big swing, I mean, I just think even as an actor, I mean, I think as an artist in any form, but. As a director, there's so many more elements involved. But if you take a big swing and it shits the bed, you took the swing. You know what I mean? And that's fucking hell, man. That's what it's about. Is to try to lay it all out there, and sometimes it's gonna shit. I think even as an actor. People are afraid of looking shitty. They're afraid of looking like a fucking dope. That they didn't they didn't I don't know they're not awesome. That their accent's not perfect or they didn't interpret that line in the perfect way. But it's like when you do and it hits, it's magical. But if you don't take that swing and be you're not willing to fail. If you're not willing to be like, let me just shit all over the floor here, and I hope you like what you find in there. There's probably some corn, and it's you know what I'm saying. It's like you're just putting it all out there, and there's got to be some garbage. If you don't make some garbage, you're not trying.
M. Night Shyamalan has made a lot of garbage.
He's made mostly garbage. Sure. He's made mostly
and
garbage.
He's decided his new garbage woman is Betty Buckley. He just keeps casting her over and over again. Which is wonderful. No, so there's another so this comes back a little bit to kind of this idea of what team you're able to build with the clout you have as a director. And I think this is what is categorically different in the 2000s than was in the 70s and the 80s. I think the 70s and the 80s was very much exactly what you guys are talking about, which were actors knowing how to craft performances and build things out. They maybe didn't have a visual acumen. They maybe didn't have some of it. I think Ron Howard's kind of a fascinating case because I think he was a protege of Spielberg, even if he wasn't a protege of Spielberg, that he was doing his version of Spielberg with the movies he was being given. He was the cheap Spielberg for that time to put out those films.
I never thought of it that way, but it's interesting.
And still be able to pull performances out that were good and compelling. And so this was another thing that came up again kind of on the Josh Brolin podcast. I don't keep meaning to bring it back to that, but it's very apropos. He was talking about, they were saying, you choose really good directors so that you know that you're always going to be in a good film. And he was basically, Brolin goes, listen, I'm working on Dune. I could work on 100 different versions of Dune with different directors, with different things. You never know what you're going to get out of it. And he goes, also, he's like, Denis Villeneuve is a great director. It's not just him. That editor is a big part of it.
And the cinematographer.
And they talk about working with the DP, how they're framing a shot, who is in the shot, what is in the shot, what's being presented in there, what's going to happen in editing. There's so many things that craft a performance from an actor's standpoint. So I think that's something that's interesting about someone like.
Well,
Clooney.
it's like the president of the United States. You know what I mean?
Absolutely correct.
You need a charismatic leader that does the important things right and surround themselves with a cabinet that's going to get shit done.
Which we're in great form for that right now.
Oh, let's get.
Well, I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to talk about that. Imagine if Stanley Kubrick was an actor. Obviously he had the director duties on lockdown, but he traumatized Shelley Duvall.
And
He was
Billy
a-
Friedkin did that too.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, they were terrors to work with, and I think that those were instances of like directors like trying to play 4D chess. You know, they didn't know how actors work, but they thought they did. They thought they could manipulate a performance by these by full out
torture.
What's the word I'm looking for? Torture. Yeah, I mean straight up.
And
it can be torture. I mean, the idea that like these directors think that like, oh, I have to do this to try to elicit this performance from this guy, and it's like, hey man, if you fucking know how to talk to an actor, you can just tell them what you need.
Yeah.
And most of the time, they're gonna give it to you if you got some good people with you. You know
Well,
what I
no,
mean?
here's the other one thing I would like to add to that and piggyback on that. And what is a learned language, kind of like what Matt was just referencing, is the visual language. Because as an actor, I know you are going to perform a lot differently with a 135 millimeter lens 4 feet from your face where it is right in your grill and you're having to react to somebody.
point.
Yep.
As opposed to shooting a 16 millimeter wide.
Right.
Yep.
It dictates your performance. It affects your performance. As many times as you do the same scene over and over again, the way the camera looks at you as an actor is gonna change the way that you react.
Yeah.
And so a director needs to know how to communicate that in a way that's not like gobbledygook.
And their DP too. And this, I'm sorry to keep bringing it back to Dune, but this is like obviously the news cycle right now is all Dune shit. So they were.
Hey Matt,
Yeah.
you get that popcorn bucket, buddy?
Shh.
Yeah.
Did you get it? Is he gonna get it?
Does it look like a dick? Is that what everybody?
No,
keeps
it
talking
looks
about?
like a vagina.
No,
It looks
Seth.
like a teethed vagina.
You put your dick in it.
Oh,
In the
gotcha.
Thank you, Nick.
I heard it was weird, and I was like,
It's
"What are
pretty
you
weird.
talking about?" It's like a
No.
You get used to it. It feels pretty good after a while.
There was the guy that does the really good movie interviews. He was talking with Austin Butler and Timothy Chalamet, and basically talking about their relationship with the DP. And I love also any interviewer that's gonna be like, yeah, what would, like, we've heard all the shit that you've done with the director.
Matt, just for the listeners,
Yes.
tell everybody what a DP is.
A director of photography, a cinematographer, if you will. So yes, thank you, JB. You're doing the smart list for our Tracy listeners.
Tracy.
We only have 10 people that listen to this, and most of them think it's either dual penetration or director of photography. Either way, they're really happy that we're talking about it. So, I think it's really interesting that like he was asking about that, and they go, "Oh yeah, well we talked with the DP about certain things that were being framed, certain people that were in the background, certain things that were happening in this scene together," and I think that's. There are actors also that are paying attention to that and not paying attention to that or don't care about that and just are kind of going out there. And I think Clooney had a really good bit, like another goddamn Smart List podcast. Just listen to the other podcasts. Turn ours off and listen to the other ones. I'm going to pull everything from it. But Sam Rockwell was on there talking about working on Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, which was Clooney's first directing gig. And Rockwell is playing Chuck Barris. He is the lead of the movie. He is this is Clooney proving himself as director without a lot of clout at that point, really, to be honest. And Sam Rockwell being cast, the studio wanted 1,000 other people that were more famous than him, but they get Rockwell, and he's doing all this shit. And Clooney brings him aside and goes, "Hey, less Bozo the Clown, more down to earth." And Rockwell goes, he wasn't being mean. He was literally just being like, you don't need the props. You don't need, you've brought way too much to this that is too big energy, that is not going to fit to what is going to make this look right. And that's kind of what you guys were saying before a little bit of a director being able to talk to an actor bluntly and say, hey, this is going to look bad if you continue to play it in this manner. And I know you can do it a different way. And I'm not going to give you a fucking line reading, but dial it down because this is not stage and it's not kitsch. And it's going to come across like that if you do this on film.
In that course that Ben and I took, our professor was the number one thing he always said. Remember, Ben is like, do not do the line reading the way you want it to be done.
Yeah.
That's the number one
Don't
thing.
do the Kevin Smith.
Yeah, do not do that. And of course, yeah, I thought about Kevin Smith. That's always how I pictured myself directing on set, just throwing myself in the mix. And it's like those are the type of things you don't understand or even anticipate are going to be condescending or taken with resentment.
Yeah, I mean, this is no offense to Nick because we all did it, but when you first start writing, you have the tendency of writing every character in your own voice. So
Yeah.
you're like, oh, that's the way I would say that line.
Yeah.
And then the only director that's ever gotten away with it is Kevin Smith. And I think the reason why is because his presentation became so sort of niche and kitschy. It ended up kind of working, but yeah.
I'll throw Tarantino in there in the same bucket in a different way, but a little bit the same.
Same. It's a niche.
Now, Matt, as yourself, an actor turned director of the podcast, I think you also know if you tease something, you got to pay it off in the third act. Your Chekhov's gun here is Maestro, and I kind of want to hear why you think that in this particular case, an actor turned director or an actor director directing themselves was a particularly bad thing.
I would like to defer a little bit of that question over to the person that chose kind of inspired this podcast, which is Seth. And Seth is an actor and a writer.
Mm.
Have you directed?
No.
Okay, you should. So now Seth was very much positive about Maestro. And I don't want to yuck anyone's yum, but we're gonna because we're assholes, and that's what we do.
Yeah.
But I want to give Seth the first chance here to talk about what about Maestro he responded positively to.
All right, so I think.
Sorry, Seth, we're all out of time.
Maestro
this has been
fucking
great.
sucked,
This
right?
has been great.
Right?
This has been great.
I get it.
No, I honestly, and I suppose it's very easy to like be cynical about somebody's performance or somebody's I don't know, the way they sum up a role and all that. So obviously, I know there's this whole thing about how shticky and how deeply invested he was in the role, and everybody's like, oh God, it's so cheesy and blah blah blah. I literally, when I started watching that movie, and I was watching Bradley Cooper, and it's set in a particular time. I think I don't know, were the first scenes in probably set in the 60s or something to that effect.
50s.
Earlier, yeah, because pre-West Side,
50s,
so
yeah,
40s,
of
late
course,
40s,
so 40s, 50s. And yeah, I mean, the very first scene where he's, where they call him and they say, can you come in and cover for this guy who's not available? And you're going to, there was, I had a very hard time seeing, and this is the only thing almost that matters to me when I watch a performance. Can I see the fucking performance? Am I watching this asshole perform, or am I watching the person that he's playing?
It's the Kevin Spacey rule, as Ben and I that we love.
Listen, do not follow any of Kevin Spacey's rules.
Just gonna say,
except unless you want to know how to suck a really mean.
It stinks. Back in the day, Kevin Spacey. Wow, we're getting sued all kinds of ways in this podcast.
I don't know the rules of podcasts.
I love American Beauty, and I can see every moment of Kevin Spacey acting in that, but I still love the performance, even though I'm watching him act on screen. So I think that's
so, and that's legitimate. I mean, the whole thing is, I can't honestly, like, that's what I watch for when I watch anything is, am I watching an actor acting, which is kind of garbage, or am I watching a person just fucking losing themselves in somebody? And like, I didn't see, and maybe I'm naive, and maybe I'm just maybe I just want to believe, but I didn't see Bradley Cooper in that role. I bought him. I thought he was so deep in it, and I thought he was so. Literally through the whole thing, I forgot that it was him, and I knew I was forgetting it was him. I was aware of it. I thought, blow me away, bitch. Like literally, when I turn that on, I do it to me, do it, and he fucking did it. Fucking did it.
On a previous podcast, JV made a really good point that there are also actors that can turn that.
Yeah.
Where neither her or I were big fans of Julia Roberts for a really long time, and in the last 20 years, Julia Roberts has turned into what she believes, and I also believe is a phenomenal actor.
Yeah.
And it's because she started listening and she started reacting.
Yep.
And not like performing.
And she had a better director all of a sudden.
But I also think that we start to give. All right, so here's. This is going to be a non sequitur, but like, so for instance, I've just recently had this conversation. I'm a musician as well, so I've recently, when I grew up, I fucking hated Phil Collins. I hated Phil Collins with every fiber of my being. I hated the.
I swear I didn't plan this, but this
All
is
right,
so perfect.
Listen. He is in poor. He is in poor health right now, so tread lightly.
No, well, here's the thing. So I think you'll. So if you feel that way about him, you're gonna like where this is gonna go. You're gonna like where this is gonna go. So I fucking hated Phil Collins. And
I don't like where this is going.
And then, my friend Keith Parkins,
Tarzan came out.
No. He showed me a video of Lamb Lies Down on Broadway with Phil Collins playing drums, and I went, "What? Wait, what? He's not a shitball like singing shitty pop." He's like, holy shit, he's one. And then I'm a King Crimson fanatic. And then he was like playing drums with King Crimson. And I went, God, are you kidding me? And then I was a musician for many years and I wrote lots of tunes and they were all garbage. And I mean, they weren't garbage. They were, nothing was special. And then, I grew up hating listening to his solo music. But there came a point as a songwriter, and I started listening to "I Can Hear Him Calling in the Air Tonight," and like the spareness of it. There was nothing there. There was nothing but some drums and
one of the best
melody.
Produced tracks of that era. The producing is
unbelievable.
Unreal.
It's unbelievable. And so I like had this whole narrative of Phil Collins, which was. Because I was this punk rock dude growing up, and I was like,
you were a 21st century schizoid man. What were you?
Hell yes, I was. You sweet bad religion, Mother Hubbard. I love it.
There we go.
Oh man, you just tickled my titty right there. That was amazing.
Keep it PG.
Oh God, I love it. I'm sorry.
No, I heard titties. I'm good.
But
I'm good with it.
I went back and I've had this whole history of believing this one thing, and then because just where I was in life and just the maturity, I looked back and I saw what Phil Collins had done that I used to fucking hate, and I said. And I was able to realize it was genius, even if it's not at this moment my favorite music to listen to. It's genius to be able to have these spare melodies that penetrate your brain forever, like that you just can't shake. People can't do that. That's not simple. That's not typical. I mean, I've written songs that are fine. They're like fun to listen to at a gig. You know what I'm saying? But like this dude's written legendary tunes that are so spare, and they're just only what they need to be and nothing more. And as an actor, I think that is exactly what you should be doing. You know what I'm saying?
Here's the thing. Can I make a quick counterpoint?
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's going to go back and watch Mystic Pizza and be like, man, Julia Roberts really brought it in that movie.
Right.
It's not going to happen.
We all do garbage. Everybody does garbage.
But I just want to say, I want to say this is not an opinion of mine. I want to say it's fact. Guys, I know I'm right about this. All the years I have devoted to studying acting, and it's a lot of money and a lot of years, you cannot direct yourself. Especially if you're a narcissist. If you're not a narcissist, then you can do a Ben Affleck in Argo, okay? I'm just guessing. I'm guessing from my own many years of studying that Ben Affleck is not a narcissist because he turned out a good performance in Argo and he also directed it. Barbra Streisand, who I am the biggest fan of, okay? She can't direct herself in movies. Her acting suffers in the movies she directs. Her acting is not as strong as it is in the movies that other people direct. Clint Eastwood, I believe, is not a narcissist. He can direct himself in a
because
movie.
of Unforgiven.
And $1 Million Baby, even he was excellent in that.
Yeah.
I'm saying if you have narcissistic personality disorder, which many people in Hollywood do, you cannot direct yourself. I'm sorry.
I hear that.
You can't.
Well, don't you think there's a little bit of narcissism just baked into the premise of I'm going to direct a movie and star in it?
Yes, but
No, I
no.
think it's pride.
Yes, but no. I am 100% on. So this is where I'm gonna. This is where we differ.
Warren Beatty.
Well, you're gonna say Warren Beatty is a good director of what?
No. I just meant in the early 80s, he directed some pretty good movies that he also was in.
Did he?
Nick Tracy?
Like what? Just gonna be him an asshole.
I don't believe he's a narcissist. I think that's probably true, Ben. I agree
He
with
was
you.
nominated for 2 Academy Awards.
I think he might.
Wait. Wasn't the song "You're So Vain" literally written about Warren Beatty?
Actually, no. I actually know that for a fact it was not.
Oh.
Okay.
Oh.
Who was it?
Because Carly Simon told Howard Stern who it was, and Howard Stern immediately forgot when she said the name because he had never heard it before.
It's somebody else. No,
Dave Coulier?
Yeah, something like that. Something like that.
I very much in this. And there's no right or wrong answer to this. I'm in the JB camp that I feel. I felt with Maestro at some point. I started to check out because I felt it was someone doing an acting exercise. And granted, it's a great fucking acting exercise. I don't take anything away from the performance. I think it is phenomenal. To me, though, it feels like someone going into an acting class and saying, I've developed this character to do this thing. And I feel that meanwhile, in the background, Carey Mulligan is stealing every piece of goodwill that movie squanders and delivering the far more impressive and phenomenal
But she's the
performance.
focal point of that movie, if you think
But
about
she's
it.
not.
She is.
But we'll
is.
never hear from Bradley, at least not until the Oscars are over.
Yeah.
If he knows that or not, okay? If he knows that Carey Mulligan.
I feel like she is that movie.
She is.
But and honestly, and maybe I'm just too generous in my assessment, but I think that he fucking served her up on a platter. I feel like he just said,
Wow.
I'm the shit I'm the shit stain here, and she is this fucking hero of this, and I'm going to make myself as horrible as you can possibly imagine,
I
so
agree
that
with
she
that.
can be consumed in all of her
I feel
glory.
like Matt is dying to say something.
No, it's not even that. It's more of like that's what I want. I want to believe, but the fact is, the person campaigning for these awards, the person talking with Bernstein's family and sitting on the couch with them and talking about how much he misses their actual grandfather, and not anyone he's ever met.
Matt, you don't understand. Bradley Cooper told the family that Leonard Bernstein was with him throughout the shooting and borderline consumed him, and he was just an earthly vessel for Leonard Bernstein to appear in his own movie.
Okay, but that is other than the movie. That is other than your experience of the performance.
Like if we are to criticize Bradley Cooper's performance as Leonard Bernstein, we are criticizing Leonard Bernstein himself since he came back.
I want to couch this in that I watched this movie very early on before I listened to any interviews with Bradley Cooper about it.
And I've listened to almost none. None.
And when I watched it with my blessed mother, who is a pill. But we
she
watched it
liked the
together.
beginning of my play.
She actually did quite like the beginning of Seth's play. No, I even as much as I wanted, I try to be as much as I can to be converse to her. She was not really getting into his performance, and I'm like, I kind of want to just like argue against her, but I don't feel I can because it didn't, something about it to me rang like a really, really amazing exercise. That's the only way I can describe it. It's not an impression as much as it is a, could I do this? If I was in an acting school, this is my thesis. My thesis is to become Leonard Bernstein and do that.
It felt
So-
like an acting exercise to you.
But if your thesis was to become Leonard Bernstein, could anyone have done it better? It was really good.
I haven't
Leonard
seen it.
Bernstein.
And I think I think like as like actor nerds or as like movie nerds or whatever, we're always like, how can I pick this apart? No, how can I, whatever. But like, I started watching that movie. I had no expectations of it. and I'm a little bit out of the kind of like critique world, and I don't know. I bought him from the first moment. And rather than like digging into like why it might be a narcissistic exercise, I thought it was a beautiful rendering of Leonard Bernstein. And yes, now here's the thing. When you start to like dig into like all these interviews that he does and he says all this like trite bullshit, yes, it can color your experience of it.
Sure.
But if you remove yourself from that, if you say like, if you just go like, I'm not going to like involve in, it's not about the press. It's not, there's all sorts of weird freaking people that do movies all the time. So it's like, it's not about.
It's the Anne Hathaway effect. Everyone,
Yes.
nobody can tell if she was good in Les Mis or not. Because she was so fucking annoying about Les Mis. And because she was literally sitting at the bottom of the steps at the Oscars before they announced her name, ready to go up on the stage. It's the Anne Hathaway effect, and it does affect the audience's
perception
of your performance.
Yep.
I don't have any
I
opinion
remember hating
either
that.
way. Because
I loved Anne Hathaway. I was sorry to see that. And you're right. It does. It can color you. In this specific case, though, I think it's just a case of art being subjective.
Yeah,
For
of
the
course.
The same reasons that Seth bought into it. For me, immediately, without having seen any of the press junkets afterwards, and actually being a fan of Bradley Cooper.
Same, yeah.
The thing that stood out for me was, this is, I could see the performance, and you couldn't. And I think that when it comes down to it, I think you're right. If your perception is you don't see the person burning the calories or the wheels and gears moving in their head, then it's going to be a good performance for you.
Yeah.
And it's just how you.
That's all. And literally, that's all I care about when I watch a performance. If I can watch, if I see somebody like just flexing their muscles and they're just like, watch this, watch the next thing I'm about to, then I fucking hate it immediately.
Ben, did you see Maestro?
I started it and I got super bored.
I honestly, I was just wondering what your opinion was.
Yeah, well, and usually I don't stop movies halfway through, but because it was on Netflix, I was like, I'm gonna pause this and maybe I'll come back and revisit it in a little bit. I wasn't feeling it.
Got it.
And I'm a Bernstein fan.
Got it.
So,
I think his arrangement of Rhapsody in Blue is my favorite one to date.
Carrie Mulligan seemed to be pulling a lot of weight in the movie.
Oh, she's amazing.
Again,
She's spectacular.
if I'm going to watch a character-driven drama, I don't know. I found that movie very, very strangely paced, and there were some strange artistic choices that were made that took me out of what. I mean, I love a movie where it's just two characters talking. And I wasn't into it.
Well, and Ben, you hit something, and we're going to run too late on this, and I want to get to one last question for everyone. But I think part of something you're hitting on there that I think is really interesting is the idea of being a visually or overall production impressive director versus being a performance great acting thing director, right? So you look at Argo, there's nothing overtly super impressive visually in Argo. It's just a well-paced, well-structured, well-acted film with a lot of moving character pieces.
Well written. It was well written.
And those pieces though have to work together, and the casting and all of that. And I think you've got something like that. Versus I look at something like Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, which has amazing performances, but also visually there is a palette, there is a swing being done with it. And then you look at something like Maestro, which is trying so hard to do both. They are trying so hard to make some really concrete and impressive performances, and also working on these long takes, directing these things, working on all of that. And I think that sometimes that can be overwhelming for a person to undertake both of those at the same time.
So you bring it back
to
to
me,
Seth. You think that Cooper just took a big swing?
I think
Fair.
Cooper took a huge big swing.
Fair.
Absolutely.
The
Absolutely.
parts when you look at it, for me personally, the parts that worked the most for me weren't when the camera's just trained on the close-up of Bradley going wild. It was the more cinematic scenes that took more of the directorly approach and less theatrically approach. Like when he's having that argument in the bedroom and you see Snoopy slowly passing through the windows because their loft, your New York City loft, is right in the path of the Thanksgiving parade. Those were the moments that really worked for me. And it's funny, what Seth said reminded me of something else. You know, for me, this is the framework of a good movie with clearly a competent director, but it was the performance that stood out as, look at me, look at me, look at me. Whereas, like, Poor Things, I got lost in the performances there. Those felt so natural, but the movie itself, the director's approach was the look at me, look at me, look at me. And I think, again, similarly, when something sets off that red flag, that, like, clearly someone's like, oh, yeah, get a load of this shit. You know, once you perceive that, you know, it's really easy to write something off. And then the movie's in the position to win you back. But if it's working from the beginning, then you're strapped in. You're in for the ride.
But can't we go all the way back? Everything we've said about what makes a actor transform into a director successfully, can't we go all the way back to Orson Welles and just say Citizen Kane and he nailed it? Right? Like,
that's garbage. Utter garbage.
Well, so I want to end on this question. I want everyone to answer. What piece of art, it can be TV or what artist, actually, forget the piece of art necessarily. What artist do you think for you has been the most surprisingly enjoyable turn from actor to director? Who have you been most surprised by, or pleasantly surprised by, or just saying like, oh, holy shit, this is
I have mine immediately.
Let's do it, Ben.
Jonah Hill, his movie mid-90s.
yeah,
I
totally.
loved that movie.
Was that a good movie? I gotta watch that.
Oh, dude, so good. And his new movie was just announced, and it's Keanu Reeves, and he's bringing Cameron Diaz. He's coming out of retirement.
That's awesome.
His new movie, yeah.
I love this.
Which he also co-wrote, and it's like a thriller.
I have so many weird feelings about Jonah Hill generally, so I'm excited.
I do as well,
see
but
what he's doing.
I agree that like when he's on, his shit is fascinating.
Yeah,
and when he's an asshole, his shit is an asshole.
That dude's in a weird place right now.
Yeah, for sure.
I think.
Nick, how about you?
You know, it's not surprising because I think that he directed a lot of the sketches in his own shows. Going back to Jordan Peele, what was surprising was just having such a huge impact on the genre of horror, which was just a completely out of left field. But one thing I do want to mention is because I think it's really pertinent to this topic, is Ben Stiller.
That was that was my pick.
Oh shit! Well, I'll let you take it. I think it's funny that I dislike most of the movies where Ben Stiller is an actor in, but every time he's directed something,
good.
and it's very good.
Yeah.
I think not only is it good, his varied amount of things that he's done, if you're going back all the way to Cable Guy, to Zoolander, to Tropic Thunder, and then into his TV work with Escape at Dannemora, and then
you can't leave out Flirting with Disaster, which is literally the greatest movie ever made.
And think about the tonal lines he had to toe in Tropic Thunder and Cable Guy. You know, you get this kind of dark comedy, and Tropic Thunder, a movie that I don't think anybody could make today.
And in the meantime, we'll just forget that The Secret Life of Walter Mitty exists.
Yes, we will do that.
Well, or I could spend an entire podcast talking about Severance and how genius that is, and how it was literally him finding a one-time playwright college student and letting that guy showrun the show and make what I think is the best TV in the last 2 decades, other than True Detective season 1.
That takes courage. That takes real courage in this industry for someone who's established to go out on a limb and give someone who deserves the chance without the resume.
It
pretty
really
astounding.
is. I think he is one of the most ridiculously surprising talents for me on that. JB, do you have someone on here?
There's no question. I don't care what any of you think. It's not an opinion. It's fact. It's Jordan Peele. The best. The best actor, the director, broke every freaking kind of ceiling, and that's it. So whatever you guys say is wrong.
Love it.
My mom always judges a movie. Her one thing is if she keeps thinking about it, and I can't think of another filmmaker that the past 3 movies have been in my head for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, and you finally get it out. The slightest thing will remind you and take you back to it. Resonant,
And first timer Seth, what do you have for us?
I would have to go with, I think, Christopher Guest.
Nice.
That's a good
That's a really good one.
Yeah,
That's a really good one.
And how many movies could you possibly? There's
It wasn't
so
even on
many.
my list. I didn't even think of it.
Again, like I'm being serious when I say this. He cannot be a narcissist. There's no way that guy can direct himself.
He must, and not only,
those movies.
and that's the thing. Like a person like him, who's done what he's done, who's directed what he's directed, he must be so delightful to go out for coffee
That's
with.
what I'm saying.
You know what I mean? That guy must be just an absolute fucking dream to just be like.
Jamie Lee Curtis chose him. That's all. That's all you gotta say.
Yep. For sure.
Yeah, I forgot who the actor was on Knives Out, and they were just like, she was like, oh, I do music on the side. She's like, oh, my husband does music too. You should come out to dinner with us sometime. She's like, what the fuck is going on?
It was
with Christopher Guest and Jamie Lee Curtis.
It was Ryan Johnson's friend that does all that he's brought along on all the movies with him, wasn't it? That actor that does all Ryan Johnson's like best friend from like college.
Oh yeah, the younger guy.
The younger guy who's in all of his. I think it was that guy, because that guy gave the greatest stories from the set of Knives Out of just talking about like what it was like working with all of these crazy powerhouses. But I think guys, wonderfully fun topic to discuss.
Totally.
I gotta say this turned out wonderful. I could spend many more hours on this, but we'll save that for another.
I think I want to do podcasts all the time.
Wait a minute, we just show up and drink and do the same thing we do. That's how Ben and I started the podcast.
That's what we do anyway, right?
We were writing and drinking, and we're like, all right,
let's just talk and drink instead.
Well, no, actually, first step was let's start a blog, and so we did that, and we're like, oh, it's a lot of work to like write each of these articles. We're like, what if we just said the articles to each other in a room with a tin can between us? We're like, perfect, let's start a podcast.
You know what I wondered, Maddie? Do you ever mess up the intro when you're like,
oh yeah, have you not?
If
you listen to, there's times I will cough, I will choke on shit, I will get distracted because so oftentimes. Not often, almost all the time, Ben and or Nick are mouthing or making fun of me as I go through the intro.
I've seen Ben do that.
Silly ways, and sometimes I let it get to me, and sometimes I don't. But
Gotcha.
That's how it happens. But I want to thank our guests for this evening, Seth.
But not your co-hosts who are so hard.
You were going to be. I was going. Listen, I was deferring the final bow to you guys. That's a theater thing. But thank you to Seth Ullian and JB over Wing, and of course, thanks to my boys.
Staying up past my bedtime.
Little Nicky and little Ben staying up past their bedtime.
Ben, you're a trooper.
You are, buddy. Thank you so much for listening.
To bed.
I might still have a game or two of going to crush some aliens on Helldivers too.
Nice.
Ben, I'll meet you there. Now that
the kids are finally asleep.
Yeah, I will meet you there. I will meet you there, buddy.
I love it, Seth.
For democracy.
Seth, you're a new timer, so I will not count it down. But at the end of the episode, we all say cheers in unison. Nick does not like the countdown, so we want to thank you so much for listening. We'll talk to you next time. Cheers.
But then you do like the big breath, and it's just the same as counting down. No cues, no audio cues. Just make it natural.
Cheers.
Kampai.
Not seen.
That's better.
I don't know.
Yahtzee.
Yeah.